Hi everybody, it's Miss Kristina. Welcome back to another Sunday Bible story time. I hope you've had a wonderful day so far. I hope you got to do something fun, whatever that may be. Maybe you got to go play outside or draw some pictures or play puzzles or cook something interesting, or maybe you got to play on a slip and slide. It was really hot today. It's like 97 degrees, so we went swimming, and so I have swim hair. But it was fun and we got to cool off, so that's good. And it's so hot that I can't record outside, so I'm in Savannah's room. And so I hope that all of her sloths and things like that are not a distraction. But today I'm going to read you another Bible story. This one comes from Alison Mitchell. It's called The Storm That Stopped. It's a true story about who Jesus really is. And it's illustrated by Catalina Echeverry. And today I am going to do something I do at home. So at home, when I read to the kids, I will sometimes use silly voices, and I'm not really good at it, but they like it, so I do it anyways. And so I'm going to use some funny voices today, and we'll see how that goes, okay? So let's get started. One day long ago, Jesus was teaching people by the sea. Soon some people arrived, and then others, then more and more, until there were people everywhere. "We can't hear back here. Give me some room. Be quiet. I can't see." The crowds were just too big. No one could see Jesus, and no one could hear Jesus. So Jesus asked his friends, the disciples, to push their boat out onto the water. He sat in the boat, and the huge crowd spread out along the beach. Now they could all see and hear Jesus, as he told them all about God. When he finished teaching the people, Jesus said to his friends, "Let's go over to the other side of the sea." Jesus had finished teaching the crowd, and now he had something to teach his friends. But they didn't know it yet. So they all jumped in the boat with him and set sail across the sea. Jesus was so tired. He'd been teaching the people all day, so he lay down in the back of the boat and fell asleep. It was a quiet evening. The water gently lapped against the boat, and the sun slowly set in the sky. Jesus was sleeping. The disciples were quietly talking. Then, all of a sudden, they were in the middle of the biggest, loudest, scariest, most ginormous storm you could imagine. The wind blew hard. The waves grew huge. The water poured into the boat. But Jesus was asleep. The wind blew harder. The waves grew huger. The water filled the boat. But Jesus was still asleep. "Jesus! Wake up! Wake up! We're drowning! Don't you care?" What a silly thing to say to Jesus. Of course he cared. He loved his friends so much that one day he was going to die for them. Jesus stood up in the boat. The wind was still blowing. The windometer. 30% blue, mild breeze. 60%, it's orange. I wouldn't be outside if I were you. 90%, if it reaches here, alert, alert. The waves were bigger than ever. Waveometer. 30%, a few waves, but nothing too serious. 60%, big waves, get out of the sea. 90%, it's red, too late, help! The water was pouring into the boat quicker than the disciples could tip it out again. Cincometer. "Hey, there's some water in the boat." 60%. You should really do something about this water." 90%. "I really hope you know how to swim." The boat was sinking. Panic-o-meter. 30%. I'm getting worried, but nothing serious. 60%. Okay, you are officially in panic mode. Calm down, calm down. 90%. Major panic attack! Ah! But then Jesus did something amazing. He didn't help his friends pour the water out of the boat. He didn't help them try to row back to shore. Jesus simply spoke. But he didn't speak to the disciples. He spoke to the storm, to the wind, and to the waves. Quiet, be still. Just 3 little words and the storm stopped. Right away, at that very moment, the sea was quiet, still, and calm. Then Jesus looked at his friends. Why are you so afraid? Do you still not trust me? But they were terrified, and they asked each other, Who is this? Even the waves and the wind do what he says? This is what Jesus wanted to teach them. He wanted them to know who he really is. The disciples already knew a lot about God from his special book. They knew that God made everything. He made the world, he made the sun and the moon and the stars, and he made the sea and the wind as well. They knew that only God can tell the sea what to do, that only God can tell the wind when to blow, or the waves when to crash. Only God can do these things. God. But the disciples had just seen Jesus do the same things God can do. So what is the answer to their question? Who is Jesus? Jesus is God. How do we know about the storm that stopped? The account of Jesus calming the storm was written down for us by Mark, who was a friend of Peter's. It's in the New Testament part of your Bible. Remember, at the beginning of the New Testament, we have the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This is in Mark. You can find it in Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. At the end of this true story, the disciples ask each other, Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him? The rest of Mark's book shows us the answer to their question. Jesus is able to do things that only God can do. For example, in Psalm 107, it is God who saves the sailors and stops the storm. So, who is Jesus? He is the Son of God. I hope you enjoyed this book. I love this illustration, this illustrated version. I like the way that they really capture what Jesus was trying to teach the men. It wasn't just about the fact that Jesus could calm the storm. It was about that Jesus is God. And I think sometimes when we have really scary, wild things happen in our lives, we tend to forget that God is who he says he is. We worry and we complain and we grumble and we cry and we try to fix it on our own, and we forget that God is in control of everything. He has the authority over the wind and the rain and the storms, over tornadoes and earthquakes and viruses, everything and anything. God has the authority over it all, and he is sovereign over it all. And so this is a good reminder for us that no matter what we're going through, that Jesus is with us and that he is in control. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that we get back together soon, but if not, I'll see you again next week. Bye.